what's up, guys? This is Live at the Bike PokerCraft with D22 Social Wayne Chiang. This is my VIP guest, Zach Freeman,
Hello.
who's so like out of the scene now, but you've been around for like ages and ages. You were on Live at the Bike way before I was. You were like high stakes grinder, probably before I was too. What do you?
I don't know your timing. I only know my timing.
Yeah,
Oh, I have to have it close.
Yeah.
My poker was kind of linear progression in stakes. It was no huge jumps. I started probably one of the few people that started at live 1-2 no limit.
okay. So that's
yeah.
probably
That was when I was an engineer in like 2005-ish.
wow. Okay.
I
No,
played at the Hustler Casino.
I
Yeah.
was slightly earlier than you. Let's just start with your story and then how you got into poker, and then go through your extensive history because it's
Sure.
pretty huge. All right.
So yeah, I mean that's kind of a little bit before that. I came down to the South Bay area for an internship as an engineer.
SpaceX. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, I mean similar. Yeah, I was working for Northrop Grumman at the time, and so I had a lot of free time on my hands, and didn't really know anyone in the area. So just like anybody else in school during grad school, we were just playing little $10 tournaments, and decided
What year was this?
I was like 03, 04.
Okay. So
Yeah.
about the moneymaker boom.
Yeah, it was like
Approximately.
when the games were really good, but I was just one of the fish too. Like I couldn't even beat those games.
We all have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah. So so I said, okay, I'm going to go to the casino and started playing $1, $2 no limit, and I would take like meticulous records. I still have them, little notes on players and my sessions.
That's awesome.
And my lifetime graph looks pretty funny because it's just, my big swings were like $120, and I kind of I just did that for a whole summer, and then when I moved down here to be an engineer, I'd work like, I'd play whatever you want to call it. I'd play like twice a week after work, and
Twice a week.
yeah.
I just don't want to get you in trouble with your old bosses, if you were late
Oh,
and took
yeah.
sick days.
Yeah, no, those
Twice a
days after a winning session were fine, but the days after a losing session were definitely tiring.
Yeah.
And I just kind of built that separate role, and it became a serious hobby that I tried to get, just the normal progression just was on 2+2, learning things, and then let's see. So yeah, at one point I was doing pretty well in poker.
We all start from the bottom. So you started with 1-2 no limit, and you weren't in the phase of doing like 7-card stud or limit hold'em.
No, I just played no limit for a long time. I remember the first time I played 2-5 no limit, and just thinking like everybody knew what I had. And
When actually like they just had nothing, and you just like bet, right?
yeah, I mean, I just remember being pretty terrified. I also have this other memory. It's like this distinct memory when I was going through a downswing at probably 2-5 or something.
What year was this?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I was still an engineer, probably. Well, yeah, for sure, given the thought process I had going on. And I remember I'd lost like whatever 5 sessions in a row. And I was like, this game is so dumb. Like, once you get to my level, there's like everybody is like, you can't make much difference. There's no
Right,
edge. Yeah,
right.
like I've already got this game like figured out as much as you can. Yeah, maybe you're gonna get like 1% better, but
How wrong you were.
yeah. So I remember having that thought. So yeah. Anyway, then eventually, I'd say I was playing. Yeah, once I started winning quite a bit at 5-10 no limit, that was the level where the money became substantial compared to my
Work.
income at work.
Right. Yeah.
So I was making 3 times the hourly, and I was a little bored in the project I was working on, and it was coming to an end. So I just decided to take a leave of absence. And funny enough, yeah, I was getting these symptoms of stress from work, from being kind of like bored, and not doing, and just feeling like trapped, and just working with people like 30 to 40 years older than me that I didn't have anything in common with, and
Wow, that's like for engineers,
Well, I
that's
was,
like strange.
well, because there was a lot of retirees that were like staying on because it was a legacy program and they were trying to,
Oh,
they had
okay.
to use their expertise. And so, yeah, it was, and then these guys, we were doing like design work. They liked doing the design work in dark design bay. So they
Okay.
kept the lights off all day. So besides not being like that enthralled with the work, uh, it being in pitch dark,
Wow, yeah.
uh,
It's
it wasn't like ideal for somebody who just came out of college.
so you got your just undergrad or you got a graduate
I
degree?
have I have a master's in aerospace. Yeah.
Professional.
Yeah. So uh,
Elon Musk, if you're listening, SpaceX, if you're hiring, Zach Freeman, he's a pretty good guy, pretty smart guy.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So anyways,
Income going way up.
so then yeah, I just find it funny that I was having these symptoms of stress, like real actual physical symptoms, like with like indigestion and stuff like that.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't know what they were at first, and then I realized, yeah, these are stress related. And then once I quit my job and I bought a house, and I was like bought bigger house than I probably should have, and I started playing poker for a living. You would think all those things would just add on to the stress, but like all those symptoms just
You're
disappeared.
liberated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I always find that kind of
It's yeah,
entertaining to think about.
it's like a little bit like, Mike McDermott's story in Rounders. It's just like you're supposed to go a certain way. It's not like you're bad at it, but like, something inside of you says there's, something more to
Yeah,
life, I guess.
yeah. So yeah, and then I did that, and that was 2009. That I quit.
Wow, okay.
Yeah,
That's when online was still around because I was playing Full Tilt then, I believe. I
yeah,
was playing Full Tilt.
yeah. It was
What was
still. I
it?
don't even remember because online was just never a huge. e-
Oh, you were mainly live?
Yeah,
Oh, I thought you did online because you were on
I
when it
did.
went.
I did. No, they brought me on as like, I mean, not really a live player only, but they brought me on to do PLO, and I think it was a good niche because I played primarily live, so I could bring a different perspective to things.
Right.
But yeah, no, I'd say maybe even when online was just like
Correct.
full fledged, I
Yeah.
was maybe 10% of my time online.
Well, okay.
Yeah, that's why I said it's rare that you probably find somebody like I never built any money up on online. It was just kind of like supplemental time here and there, and
Got it.
yeah, I learned the mix games online right before Black Friday. Well,
Yeah.
that's why I have this
Yeah.
funny thing is like, oh man, I was terrible at the mix games at the time, and I would just destroy the big bet rounds, but it wasn't near enough to
Compensate for the limit
compensate.
winners.
Yeah, and so I think Black Friday just saved me money because it just shut me down from that learning
It
experience.
was I was doing well online like up until a month or two before Black Friday, and I was like flatlining and losing. Like it was like it might have saved me too. But you know what's interesting is like because a lot of people got on the no limit train after Moneymaker did the boom and online came out, and you're one of the people that deviated from no limit into PLO and the mixed game. Is that correct?
Yeah,
So a lot of people who just watch televised poker, they think it's all no limit, which, no limit's very popular. I would actually I think limit hold'em's like probably 55-45 in popularity in the LA area when it comes to lower and mid stakes.
the limit hold'em, as you're
Yeah,
saying.
just only slightly.
Limit hold'em, you're
Yeah.
saying. Oh, it's just I guess because of the lowest stakes, there's so many games, right?
Yeah, I mean, just mean like numerically.
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas like if you just watch televised poker, you would think that it's all no limit.
right.
And then high stakes that's where things get interesting because it's like in the heyday, like 2005 to 10, like no limit hold'em mid and high stakes was huge. But then there started deviating options like the 1 or 200 seven card set I've played with, our buddy Matt with like quite a bit.
Hmm.
PLO started, and then at some point mixed game became a huge thing, and the high stakes scene really isn't that much no limit anymore.
Right.
So how did you choose your progression to going from the PLO and the mixed games when it came to high stakes?
Uh, I mean, it wasn't something It wasn't like I wrote out a business plan really,
Yeah.
but I think I believe I started just playing PLO online and learning it. So like I probably used online as a platform to just get volume in games that you couldn't otherwise.
Was it more full tilt or just
Yeah,
Poker Stars?
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. It was full tilt pretty
And they
much. I
had
only played.
Zoom right back then.
No,
Like,
that wasn't even a thing yet. And if it was, it for sure wasn't for PLO.
okay, I know they had it for both PLO and
No,
Nova
but I'm saying when
eventually.
I
Yeah.
was playing
Oh,
it.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I played a bunch, and another, I guess, good thing was when I started playing. I think it was probably a good thing because it just made me work so damn hard. Was that when was starting PLO, I was running insanely bad compared to expectation. You know
Yeah.
the poker tracker thing when you're just like this, and I remember
It's
there's like
better that
I had one
way.
of the like more like famous
Graphs,
yeah, like in the
expected
FTP
value.
regs thread,
Yeah.
like they called it the alligator graph because it just looked like this two different completely different things. My
That's
like
hilarious.
yeah,
All
the
in EV.
theoretical EV was just
Yeah.
like up here, and this one was just going down. It was like
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't remember,
It's
40 or 50 buy-ins below, and so I was just like, man, like I would just work harder and try to do it, and yeah, eventually that became a game I was good at. And how else did I learned a lot from, you know, the normal routes of training videos were big for me, specifically learning from, uh, I guess a lot of it was when you know, I started off as just a student and customer of Run It Once when, for quite a while, I would just watch all Phil's videos and some of the other,
Was Garrett in there? Garrett Alstein in there?
yeah, he he made some videos when I was just a customer.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
yeah, I remember commenting on some of his videos. Um, and but he only made maybe a handful of videos, like maybe 4 or 5 total or something like that.
I mean,
Maybe a little more, but
once you're in the content creation space, then it just like even creating like one, like the first one is
yeah,
like a big hump to overcome, and doing like four is you kind of like you see like where you want to take something. So I don't know. I think it's a big step just to even create stuff.
yeah, for sure. I I think I've made, I guess through the years, just on and off. I think it's something like 50 videos on there or
That's a
something.
lot. Yeah.
Um, for a while, I was making a lot of them, and then you know, I decided to, well, let me just back up to, yeah, I guess to the Run It Once progression. So I just contributed a lot in the threads, and in the early days, Phil Galfond was very active in the threads. It was the site was new, it wasn't all that big, and he was trying to promote the site a lot. And
Right.
you know, nowadays he's just so busy with his
Now he's
whole,
got the challenge going on.
well, the challenge and also
The poker site. New
the
poker
poker
site.
site,
Yeah.
yeah, and other things.
Shout
So
out to him for like just continually contributing to the game. You know, it's like
yeah,
it's hard to
hmm
stick around this long, and it's exhausting,
yeah,
like playing and content creation. So
for sure. So then, yeah, there was he and I would we built a kind of relationship through the forums. You know, he liked my input, and I was always kind of uh, chiming in on on all his videos. Basically, I'd watch all of them because I just felt like he was the best content creator. Plus, a couple of guys like Odd Otson and some other guys that I would watch their PLO videos. So then the community, I guess, just but somebody suggested like, hey, hire Zach, and then Phil said, oh, okay. So then then he's like, you know, direct message me or something,
right,
and then we, you know, got to know each other a little bit better through that relationship and some other things, and so that's how I started making the videos. Um, and yeah, like you said, it's the content creation is you get through working through it, you get a lot better at it and a lot more
yeah,
polished. I remember first, the content was fine in the first couple ones, but the delivery was pretty weak. Yeah.
right. Like, yeah, it's a like for those people thinking about going to content creation with poker. One, obviously, get your ability to where you have enough experience and credibility. Second of all, it's like don't expect your first video to be that great. Even completing it, I think, is a very big first step. And just if you want to continue that path, you constantly hone your craft. Or if you decide it's not for you, congrats for like creating one. It's like now you have a piece of work to contribute to the poker community, and then you can
Yeah.
move on.
For me, it was, it's kind of a double-edged sword, but overall a big positive. The negatives came later down the road.
Sharing information,
Well, yes, but also just notoriety and just reputation. Um,
harder
uh,
to get into games.
yeah, and yeah, especially if you're doing like trying to play in a private game, and I don't mean the private games we have nowadays, which are all games, but I mean
Shots fired.
I just mean actual like games in like a
So this,
nice home or something. It's like random people will know who you are more often. And
yeah. I mentioned this on previous broadcasts, but I'll explain to the audience. So poker works different than other industries because, like, the better you get, nobody wants to play with you. Or if you're a TV player or have a high reputation, then, like yourself in that case, they may play with you once or twice, and then you're just not invited. In fact, you're locked out. And I've heard of several instances where you were locked out of games, or you're just, games going, and you're not allowed in.
yeah,
So that's something that TV poker, I don't know about other forums, but like they don't communicate that. Like that's where kind of the dream is not that easy, and nobody or not. Well, okay, I guess like forums like 2+2 or other podcasters might mention it, but they don't tell you that. You get really good at this, and then there's nothing to do. Like you get
yeah.
locked out.
I mean, it wasn't like that until I don't know, pick a number like a year ago even. So
Really? Okay.
yeah, I mean, just in the in the casino, so you could choose to play private games. Those were definitely like invite only, and
Yeah.
you had to be not only have a bad, I mean, like, not a bad reputation, like a reputation that they wanted to play with. Didn't just wasn't just solely based off your skill level. A
So
lot of it had to do with
social level.
yeah, your social, but then also like even if it's if it's like the you have to have like a party kind of attitude too, like
Sure.
drinking, drugs, like whatever, like, and so if you didn't fit into that kind of lifestyle, then that's something that just wasn't probably not a good fit for you, and you wouldn't be
Yeah.
invited.
It's
But I always played. Well, no, that's not exactly true. Primarily I played in the casinos, and um, uh, that was always like a level playing field for the most part. Anybody could come play,
right.
and that was kind of your trade-off for maybe not having such amazing lineups,
Yeah.
but they were still good enough. And then the games, they got tougher and tougher,
Yeah.
and then it got to a point where the casinos started catering to private.
Recreational. Yeah.
Well, it started catering to people that curate the lists and control the list, and it was kind of that was one of the things, not the thing, but the one of the things that made me decide to stop playing so much, or really stop playing. I haven't played in a couple months or so. Yeah.
Right. I mentioned if you wanted to come back, and then you mentioned you didn't really want to, and then this game came up, happening on February 5th, and you're like, oh, you didn't get the phone call. But I was like, the last message you told me, you
Yeah,
said you
yeah,
weren't
that's
playing
true.
much
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, every player in this lineup I've spent
A lot of time with
time outside of the
casino.
casino, outside of poker. So
That's another thing that's not communicated so much with broadcast is like you could have a friendly relationship in a poker room, but then if you guys like hang out outside the casino, it's like a different level. Like maybe you have commonalities, or you actually guys do get along, and then it's so you play golf with these guys.
yeah, golf. I mean, pretty much everything: golf, vacation, dinner, like yeah, just a mix of everything. So, yeah, so that's why I came out for this game. It should be fun.
Yeah. So why did you leave like No Limit for PLO and
I'm
mixing?
gonna do this. I'm gonna
sticks?
turn towards you. So, so I don't know where I should be looking.
Oh,
You
that's okay.
there?
That's fine.
Better.
Okay. It
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Um, Sorry, what was your question?
So, like a lot of people, especially with televised poker, all you see is no limit. So they think like no limit hold'em, like winning the World Series or high stakes, the Friday games at Live at the Bike is like the holy grail. But
Yeah.
it's not really that pretty. Like high stakes poker, I would say no limit is probably the toughest out of all of them, and doesn't run as often as the mixed games, PLO, and limit hold'em. The seven card stud game's dead, so
Yeah, so
rest in peace. That
you're asking
what? Why did you choose like
oh,
the
mixed games and stuff like
yeah
that?
PLO and then mixed
Oh, right.
games?
So PLO I just started learning, like I said, online because it was gaining popularity there, and I just wanted to learn it. There was no real intention behind it, and there wasn't much on. There actually was almost no PLO live at the time. Not in LA.
Right.
I would have to kind of create it. So yeah, I mean, it took
They
a
had a
while.
game at Gardens occasionally, right? Vaguely remember.
Yeah, they did have that.
Yeah.
I didn't go down there at the time, but I would get games going, other places, and then so PLO became, my. It's still my strongest game, and became the game I enjoyed the most, and I just loved learning it. So it was more just kind of enjoying to get better and better at it. It wasn't, yeah, that was like my motivation behind it. And then it started becoming more popular, and we got some like nice sized games going, like quarter 50 and 50
Sure.
100 PLO.
Yeah.
And I was playing those, but I never played them quite as much as I should have. I say should have because at the time, like my skill level was high enough to be playing bigger, but I was still just kind of not used to
The
having
variants.
the swings of it.
Yeah.
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 And even if I, sold or got a backing deal to play it, like I just didn't enjoy it as much. And so, yeah, I still, I was, but I mean, I guess all I'm saying is I probably could have, with retrospect, I should have grinded more and bigger.
We all probably thought so, but I mean, you're one of the responsible ones. Like a lot of people busted off like playing high stakes, and it isn't necessarily because they didn't have the skill. It's
Yeah.
like bankroll management is it's a really tough lifestyle.
So, then PLO started, there was a little bit less of it going on, and all the high stakes action was kind of progressing to mixed games. And I knew the games in the sense like I knew the very basic strategy, but I wasn't good at them. And what I did with mixed games was I just took a whole summer. I guess it was.
What year was this?
That's a good question.
2012.
No, much later. Probably like I haven't been playing mixed games that long. Probably 14 or
14.
no, it's not much later. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm trying to think of like the timelines.
Yeah.
So
So I spent just at home a good 3 months where I took every single game one by one, all the games that haven't been studied, in any depth compared to they are in No Limit and PLO. I mean, you have games like Seven Card Stud that have the super system, and then they have like
Omar
there's some
Constantine's book.
yeah, there's some like
Sklansky
there's
did.
some good books for
Yeah.
stud, but they're still very dated. They're like 30
Oh,
years
yeah.
old.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'd use those as like a starting point. But there's also games like Badusi and Badugi and the new invented games like Drama Hot
Drama High, Drama
and
267. Yeah.
and Archie and all these games. There's like
Yeah.
no literature on, and so I would just start with one, and I had some pretty creative ways of breaking them down to actually be able to use other poker software, like even using PioSolver to
Extrapolate.
to build strategies for No Limit Deuce to Seven and doing that with with every single game basically. Took a long time, but I made like a sheet for each one, and then that alone. So I already had like pretty good poker theory, but that alone was enough to make me beat the pretty big mixed games, like well, like about the size we're playing today.
200, 400, 300,
Yeah,
yeah.
right off the bat. Plus, plus some. Well, yeah, definitely plus some run good. I remember the first time I came down,
That
I
always
had like
helps.
one of those 100 big bet.
Downswings.
No,
Oh, upswings.
yeah,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah. The first time I played 300, 600, I won 60K. So,
Easy
um,
game.
yeah. So it was good to get off a start and not every time you jump into a new game like
Yeah.
I did with PLO. Like that one was a good learning lesson, but this one was just nice like reward.
Right.
But it was pretty rewarding. It was actually one of the more rewarding things I did because it was just like I went into the lab, didn't play much for a few months, didn't know anything about the games on a deep level at all. And then it was funny because I would, let's say we're playing like, whatever, stud 8 or something, okay?
Okay.
And I had spent more time than most of the people that I was playing against, like studying the game, and definitely in a way, in a level, a depth level that they hadn't done. But I would totally get like the bring in confused. I'm like, who goes first? And then like, and like, I forget to ante. I always forget to ante. If you look up my name, Ante and Zachary Freeman, there's a story about forgetting to ante. Like,
Bad reputation. But
yeah, but I make those like retarded mistakes, but also I really didn't even know. I'm like, okay, like positionally, I didn't know who went first in Razdusi, but I also had a
I do the same
four-page
thing
sheet
here. Yeah.
on
On how to beat
like
the
the
game.
combinatorics of how often I'm dealt like 3 different suits, like under
Right.
6, like
Right.
and it was kind of funny. I would kind of get a chuckle out of it because I looked like a total idiot.
Now you just blew your cover.
Well,
But you want to get
I'm
at
not
it.
playing anymore, so it's fine.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you're kind of getting into poker, trying to figure out what the next thing to do is. You have any insight on that to
Yeah,
share with the audience?
sure. Yeah, it's like I'd say like 2015-ish, or I mean, from the start, I'd never envisioned playing poker indefinitely,
None of us
full
did.
time.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
and
maybe not none of us, but a lot of us wanted to get out, so to say.
yeah, and then I guess my like rough plan was to just take all savings that I would win on, I meant that I would keep on, good years and invest in real estate and kind of supplement the income that way. And I did that to some degree, but then I didn't like the market in
Too-
in LA after I made some investments that went really well. I didn't find anything I wanted to do with it. So um, I so then like yeah, 2015, 16, 17 were times where I was thinking like I could see the attrition of recreational players. I could see the games
Yeah.
getting worse.
Yeah.
The, there was writing on the wall of like wanting to uh, transition out at some point.
Sure.
But I still loved the game and I was working really hard at it, and I mean my results were getting progressively better. So it was hard to like dedicate time to doing something different when year over year, even though the games were worse, my results were getting better. So then I'd say like 2000 mid 2018, I went on big downswing. Had my first and only losing year, 2018, and that was like, well, I took some breaks in between just mentally when you lose like 8 sessions in a row or something. Um, but then it was like a combination of using that downswing as a catalyst to dedicate some time to look into some other things, and then the privatization of the games,
Yeah.
making it so like even when there is a good game, you have to fight and bribe to get into it. That was, another contributor to deciding to do some other things. The people, there was like I used to have a lot of friends that I enjoyed being around playing, and then like the characters that were playing, the people that were controlling the games were pretty distasteful to spend time with. So then, I added it all up, and I said, okay, it's
Time to move on.
time to move on. I mean, I'll still play, but
Something like this.
yeah, and maybe at some point, when I have things like kind of with more momentum, outside of poker, then I'll come back and play.
Okay. Well, you're so OG Live at the Bike, and I remember watching some of your hands on Live at the Bike before I was ever involved, and I was like, oh, snap, it's Zach Freeman. So let's hear your commentary. This was like, shout out to Barry Woods in C1. There's Captain Key. We just saw Matt Crusar, aka Professor, and here's Zach Freeman. This is a monster's hand.
Yeah, I remember this hand.
So
Very
Captain
clearly.
Key is stealing from the button,
Key raises with the suited queen.
and here David talking.
Well, the commentary
Jack is
is
gonna 3-bet.
just funny as hell between Dave and
And you can see
Oh,
that.
was it
Nicole.
Oh, Nicole.
No, Nicole. They're just talking about
Shout out Nicole.
Oh, well,
Nicole
the guy in the button
says,
doesn't have to have a strong hand.
Zach
7-6,
slaps his
first
penis
person
on the
to
table,
tip
and he says,
See what happens.
"Mine's bigger."
Probably
Or something like that.
and he's not gonna let
Oh, the Live at the Bike
What Zach
old school
does is-
commentary.
He turns the tables.
But now it's 2020. We have to be like so
And
careful with our
3-bets him, so he becomes the aggressor.
diction.
The aggressor, and puts Key on
So-
Pun intended.
in a tough spot.
You got me.
Now Key looks like he might step this up.
So
one
you
more
three
time.
bet a small blind
Bully
to
misses
re-steal,
the Harry Vortex. I
and
miss
Captain
Harry
Key
Vortex.
Harry's here.
Harry is here.
4 bets,
Harry is here.
Harry
The Harry.
Vortex
and you
is
recheck
not
your
here,
whole
which-
cards.
what is
What's
really
going through
sad
your
is
mind here?
The other half of the Harry Vortex
Well,
has passed away. That is
this hand in context was actually
Richard is amazing.
pretty
Because
like
Richard and Harry were on the
cool
last
for
set
me,
together
I guess,
about
because,
a month and a half ago. They
you know,
were the
certain
Harry
things, if
Vortex.
you see,
It was
like-
amazing.
so random example. But if you see like a spot where somebody bet like 1/4 pot in a flop 6 years ago, you would just be like, oh, he's doing something very creative, right? But like this was at a time where like there was some 3-betting. It's not like it was ancient, but it definitely wasn't a spot where like people were 4-betting light often. And I actually didn't know, I didn't know Key very much. Just,
by the way, that's another part of the game.
but looking at him, just look at him. I mean, he looks like he's ready for war. So he doesn't look like he's gonna just come in here to relax. So I got the sense that, you know, well, first off, to start, like if you're gonna play
everybody knows and
quality
Zach certainly
poker,
knows,
like today,
the player on the
here's the
button
thing, it's kind of a
strong
tangent,
hands
but
raise. So Zach
there's
is gonna
plays,
go
some of my
first.
most favorite
Well,
plays ever,
he goes to the next
most
level
favorite
and
hands
goes,
I
"I
ever
know
played
you know."
are hands I might not even play the same way today.
Oh,
It
yeah.
kind of makes me,
Go even one step further, 'cause Zach goes,
I don't know,
what
not
I
sad,
know."
but it makes me,
And look at that.
Well, you
it
5
makes
bet.
me question.
Basically,
Yeah.
I have one of my videos on Run It Once, senior, I'm jumping around, is called Theory Killed My Game, Killed My Feel. So it's like you get better and better at understanding theory. Oh, yeah, just pause it here. This is funny too, because this hand's got a lot of things we can talk about.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, 6-7 off is not a hand we should be 3-betting in the small blind. Okay.
Yeah.
But you know, what matters more is like what you think is going on in that situation. And
Right.
sometimes when you're like so trained in theory, it's hard for your actual intuition to not get dominated by your fundamentals. And so like I used to just do whatever I thought was going to work a little bit more, you know. So anyway, 3-bet here, and we were pretty deep. I don't remember how deep, but pretty deep to be able to get a 5-bet in and folding to a 6-bet. So
Yeah, the original raise was like 65, so I'm assuming.
yeah, and I just remember thinking like, okay, people do not 4-bet linearly much at all for value. Like at that time, it was advocated to like only 3-bet very polarized. So at that time, you would construct your 3-bet range as like ace king, maybe ace queen suited.
You mean 4 bet or 3 bet?
So I'm going to start with 3-bet.
Yeah. Okay.
Like pocket 10s plus, and then like the king 6 suited and ace deuce suited and things like that, and you weren't three betting like king queen suited and ace jack off and like what people do now. So I guess what I'm saying is that on the four bet it becomes even more polarized. Like people would never four bet two queens fold to a five bet or something.
Yeah.
They only four bet hands that they were willing to like
Put their
stack off
in,
with,
Yeah.
and hands that they were bluffing with. And at 300, 400 big blinds deep, whatever we were, the hands that you're willing to stack off with are two kings and two aces. Two queens are just almost always calling. So I just kind of felt like, okay, so if he's only doing this with aces or kings, like he doesn't need that many bluffs for him to be bluffing a lot more than he has aces or kings.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like, you know, it was only that was, it was no deeper level thinking than that. I just decided, you know what, like just the way it is, like I think he's just probably bluffing enough for me to make that move. And I always was not like extremely aggressive pre-flop. So I remember the hand kind of being, you know, proud of myself for fostering that read and then executing it. Here's another thing that's kind of rewinded a tiny bit, because like if you are really good,
How far?
right there is fine. Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. All I'm getting at before you hit play is that nobody in the comments, I mean, none of the commentators and you when you're watching it and me even when I'm looking at it right now can tell that I was nervous during the hand.
So I play.
But I was very nervous.
Okay. Well,
So like I guess what I'm bringing up is that even though I knew the play was right, like I'm kind of high strung and I'm not like some people probably would be completely calm, but even somebody who's like really good at poker, I still was like, my heart was just like pounding.
Yeah.
And I feigned like I was so nonchalant about it. I remember like I grabbed the iPad after and was making like an OFC move or
Yeah.
something. But really I was like, and like, I just think that it's funny because if you were an expert at identifying like how people are feeling, like it doesn't matter. You could just, if you saw that, then Key could just put the 6-bet in, and
Yeah.
it doesn't. It's just so powerful to be able to read people, and I feel like
Sure.
the amount of turmoil I had inside has to be apparent to some level. But
all right, I'm hit play.
yeah,
Look at that. And it basically
Oh, I guess we gotta rewind it
goes to
even
the
more.
next level. Raising. Everybody knows, and Zach certainly knows, that the player on the button doesn't need a strong hand to raise.
I mean, yeah, just looking at it, I don't think it looks like
Well,
I'm.
He goes to the next level and goes, well, I know
I'm
you
gonna throw myself under the bus. Like
that I know this.
when I played on camera, like I know what I was thinking, I was feeling, and when I look at myself, I'm like, oh my god, I'm exhibiting so much. But like only you know because you know what you were thinking.
And it basically
Like we could pick up stuff like watching this video a little bit in retrospect, but it's never gonna be as much as you pick up because you're the only person who knows what you're actually
Right,
thinking.
right.
And a lot of the stuff you say about live read stuff is really true, and that's something.
Yeah, I rewatch it, and I like looking at it right now. I can't tell other than I just know how I felt.
And the other thing too is we know playing on camera there's a limited view. Like when you're actually there, you see so much more than what the camera picks up.
clearly.
Yeah, except when you're in the hand.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you watch
exactly.
people play, and you're like, dude, it's so obvious he's
Right.
bluffing here.
Oh
or
yeah,
at
when
it.
you're a third person.
When
player,
you're in the
for
hand,
sure.
it's harder to see that stuff. So.
Sure, but you do see a better view, and you also have more context because you've been playing with the person for like quite a while. So a lot of people who see these YouTube hands that are clickbait is like it's really out of context. Like you don't know the player's relationship, you don't know
Yeah.
what led up to that point.
Before you play this one, if we talk about like hands that I would not have played the same nowadays.
Yeah.
Possibly. I say that with the caveat, possibly. I can tell. I can, relay you through probably my favorite hand I've ever played.
Yeah.
It was a 5-10 no limit game, and the only read I need to give you is on the button. He's like a very. People might even know who he was, but I just won't say who it is. But he's like he was an aggressive player, winning player, but very aggressive. And like people would say aggressive players are unpredictable. He was almost like a little bit predictably aggressive, and he was a good hand reader in the sense that he was able to assess other people's ranges, but it was like he wasn't as cognizant of what his own range was, and it was this time where I took advantage of that to like a very extreme level, and so type player raises an early position, and there's like there always was like 4 calls or something. He calls on the button. I call in the small blind or big blind with queen 9 suited.
Okay.
Flop comes king queen.
That's this hand, I believe.
No,
Oh,
it's
no,
definitely
it's-
not this hand. It's definitely not this hand.
Is it in this video? I know what
No,
hand
it's
you're
not on.
talking about.
No, you don't. It's
Okay.
not. It's not on Live with the Bike.
Okay. Okay, go ahead anyway.
So it comes king queen 4 2 hearts,
King, queen, 4. Yeah.
and it checks around. He checks the button. Okay. Turn is a 7, offsuit 7. Goes check. Okay. I might have missed a check there, but it checks around.
Sure.
Okay. River is at 8 of hearts, completes the flush. What I say? I had queen 9 suited.
Yeah.
Did I say hearts? I don't have hearts.
Okay.
Okay. I obviously
Whatever. Yeah.
I have queen 9 suited, but
get the
no,
point.
yeah, a middle pair. So then I check again. It goes check, and the button, the guy that I'm talking about, he bets like 3/4 pot, which is like maybe whatever it is, $200 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm realizing, okay, unless he like rivered pocket 8s, he really doesn't have that many value bets here. And especially with his sizing in a 5-way pot, he's kind of representing a flush or a straight. The straight was an open ender on the turn, and the flush, he's betting a flush draw. Like basically, if it's not the flop, then on the turn, cumulatively, he's betting it almost 100% of the time a flush draw. So I'm just like, man, I am so sure I have him beat here. The natural progression would be to bluff catch, with second pair on that board.
Right.
But I was like so confident that he had it. I'm like, you know what? I don't want this party to end. So I raised to 600 something and just hope for like him to do something, And it was just like he thinks for a little while and he just jams for like $2,300, And once he did it, I was like, oh, I hope I'm right. Like this is ridiculous. I just go call, and then I table my hand, and it's just like I just remember I had some friends at the table. It was the most rewarding hand too, because they're like, "What the
Hell
fuck
just
just
happened?"
happened?" They're
Right.
like, "You have like a bluff catcher. You check raise and snap call the
And
3
you
bet on the river."
induced the
Yeah.
bluff catch in the third bet.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And he had that, he had the ace of hearts or something. He said later.
The blocker.
Yeah, and I don't know. That was just like and that's like an example of a hand where, theory would just be like, okay, call. He's got too many bluffs, but
Yeah.
so
And these are things that are like, and shout out to Lyman and Cyrus, but like not caught on camera that like, when we play in these normal casino games, they're like super sick plays and they're just like never caught on camera and only you and your opponent, your friends know. And there's so many like legendary hands that we are like lost that I guess like you could retell a story, I could retell some stories of ones I botched or ones we did well and just like, oh my God, if these were on camera, they would be nuts.
yeah.
So like, I don't think I have the video of you with the Queen 9 hand. I know which one. Somebody turned Ace Queen 2 pair. I think
Oh
I'm
yeah.
missing
No,
that
I know what you're talking
video.
about. It wasn't that hand, but yeah, that was. You're right. That was Queen 9. That was against that guy.
Yeah, that's why I thought.
named,
And he's still
Brian.
around. Brian's still around. I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's another example of a play that probably wouldn't have worked nowadays.
Oh, yeah,
I
absolutely,
overbet. I overbet and like
I was so
overbets were like
surprised he folded.
Yeah, that hand was surprising. I was trying to fold out like top pair or something, and I turned second pair into a bluff by overbetting because like the open ender got there. And it was like one of those spots where if you're not turning pairs into a bluff, you have no air
Yeah.
because I check called the flop on
The
king queen like 4
rag or something.
Yeah, that's why you thought it was the same
Yeah, that's
hand.
why. Yeah,
I have
it
the
was
same
very
hand as-
similar.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it was Queen 9.
king queen 4, right, and then the turn
was an ace, and he had ace
Turn was an
queen,
ace, exactly.
two pair, and
Yeah,
then the river.
and then I overbet river. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's true.
So here's now you're in your PLO phase, and there's shout out to Ryan Fee, shout out to Ramsey,
Yeah.
and this was a really interesting hand. I don't think we've ever gotten your view on this, or maybe we. And there's
Well-
JC Musa, Bryce Yaki.
What do you? I mean, not to say. What do you think's interesting about the hand? Because I don't.
Okay,
Find
well,
it that
I'll walk
interesting.
it through, I guess. It's definitely cool to watch. So UTG King Queen 9-8 seems a little loose.
That's funny you say that because what's his name? That guy that backed out of the Galfond Challenge first.
Jane Andes? Or
Yeah,
no?
yeah.
Okay.
He did a video on this hand and being like,
Oh,
he's like,
I vaguely remember this.
Zach. Oh, no, that's not good. I don't know
Yeah.
what his accent is, but he's like, Zach is opening trash in early position.
Do you have any comment on that statement? I mean, like, obviously this is not a King Queen 9-8 Queen 9 suit. It's not a premium hand, but there is some features about it that make it.
Yeah, I
interesting.
mean, again, in theory, it's not an open, for sure, and probably, I would say probably it's not an open, even with whatever reasons I could give to substantiate it.
Yeah.
At the time, you know, as time goes on, you learn more PLO fundamentals and things like that. But not to say like this was I was by no means new to PLO here, but I just felt comfortable that I wasn't. People basically the biggest thing is why you can't just look at like the solver output and say like, oh hey, you can't open that hand, is that people are supposed to be three betting, you know, a decent amount in PLO, and there's
In
you know,
position, especially.
yeah, and they're not. They're just three betting aces pretty much versus early position openers like
Right.
a lot of the time. So you just don't get punished very much.
So yeah, I guess I mean I don't know what the latest PLO things are teaching, but right now it's February 2020. So this is where my statement stands. There's a couple features about this hand that make it easy to play post flop. If you flop Jack 10 rag, you have the ultimate wrap. You do have one suit, and if you get 3-bet, you don't have an ace in your hand. And you did get 3-bet, so this is something where, as you said, in this era that this hand was played, it makes your hand easier to play, and you may not necessarily have interfering cards with aces, and, you know, as in the case now, with the flop being 9-8-5, unless they have 6-7 attached to their aces, or 9s or 8s or 5s, or 9-8, you know, you have a bit of hand confidence of where you're at.
Yeah, and so let's see, pots.
10-75.
Yeah, I mean, the only, I wouldn't say the only, but one decision you have on the flop, I do, is do we want to be leading here? And, you know, you got to first question yourself, do you want to have a leading range at all on this flop, or even on any flop? Our ranges, since I was under the gun, and he's 3-betting me, our ranges are going to be pretty high card heavy.
Yep.
So it's not like a situation where I'm defending in the big blind and I actually hit this board a ton more than him. Neither of us really hit it that much, so like his range advantage is going to be intact and carry over even on this flop a lot. That said, it is an SPR of 4, and it's not like if he has naked aces, he can just go ahead and pot call it off. I think he might take some free cards on the flop and check back. And I didn't want to be able him to be able to do that. So I felt like, given that he would probably be checking a lot of his aces here, I decided to go ahead and lead, and I led just, I guess, at normal size.
And he calls, and he has an interesting hand because he has no spades, or definitely no ace of spades, no ace X of spades.
Oh yeah,
he
and I
has-
mean,
Go ahead.
not to bash Lyman too hard, but sometimes he butchers the
The commentary.
analysis. Like,
Yeah.
he was like, well, I think on the flop he's like, oh, I don't know if he can call here. I'm like, for sure he can call. He has aces, and he has a gut shot, and he has a blocker to the straights, and he has no spade in his hand, so it means I have spades a lot, which I don't. But
Right.
and I have a million hands, like 9, 10, Jack, King that I'm gonna go ahead and bet, and
Intent check. Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, he has an easy call on the flop, and then the turn is
Easy game for you.
well, yeah, again, the turn I've got to decide. So I could check because there's a lot of things like I want to not 9 10 Jack because I made trips, but let's say I have 8 10 Jack Queen or 8 10
Right.
Jack whatever ace double suited, and I get this turn card. This turn card is bad for me. It's bad for my range. It reduces the combinations of sets and two pairs that I have, and if I have 6 7, it's not. It's actually a good card if I have 6 7 because I'm not worried about boats with him. Would be more worried about spades, but it's a bad card because now my draws have all missed, and so I'm going to have to be giving up with some of my draws there. But that said, I still want to have some value bets and bluffs,
So
given
you,
that I
you
led.
got absolutely unlucky with the run
Yeah.
it twice, but you should have
Yeah.
run it once. I'm just kidding. So it's interesting because you lead out the turn and then he ships it because he probably thinks with your range it's unlikely you have a 9. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think to him it more just comes down to like, so I bet 1,000. Pot was like 2,200. If he calls, it's 4,200. He had maybe half pot left or something. 2,700. It looks like probably more. So I like his shove. He's just basically got to commit at that point or fold.
Or fold, yeah.
And charge my draws because
If you
I
have a spade
probably will
draw.
have a hand that has to call off.
And you could have so many, like, there's a lot of, like, Jack 10 Queen X spade combinations.
Yeah.
Or just, like, even Jack 10 XX random 2 high cards, with spades that are reasonable that you would bet out. And you lose equity once the turn comes out, I guess. And
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think it was too.
I mean, one of the things is like we're talking about it like in this fashion, but a lot of people who are especially who are new to PLO may not be, looking at all these things, and now we get shed some light on it a little bit.
Yeah.
So this next hand is a game that I'm not as familiar with, and like I was commentating, but I don't know enough about the game to
I don't know this hand.
So it's a deuce to 7 single draw no limit hand. So
Oh.
the nuts for the audience, it's 5 cards. The nuts is 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and you get 1 draw, and that's no limit. But it's a mixed game, so
Hey, I almost wore that shirt today.
so you have a pat 10, 8, 7, 4, 3, and you raise in the cutoff, and everybody you were looking for the low hand. Ellie Lesra calls on the button with 6, 5, 3.
I made it 500. You said,
Yeah,
and it's 1-1,
I believe so.
one stripped or 1-2.
Should be 1. Oh, it's probably 1, 2, and then a 200 big blind or button answer, I believe.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's
So-
a loose call by Dan, but
Dan or Ellie?
Dan's in the small blind.
Yeah,
He's
okay,
Call drawing too.
Right. I misread and I thought it was 2, 3, 4, 5 in the small line, and then I corrected
Are you sure this
myself.
is single draw?
This is single draw no limit? Yes.
Okay.
So Dan calls
Oh, yeah, that
or
makes
draws
sense, yeah.
2. You stand pat obviously, and Ellie draws 2.
Yeah.
So this is interesting, at least for me, because you end up checking here, I believe. Yeah. And then Ellie bets. Dan Zach snap folds, and Ellie drew 2. And you have a pat 10-8. And I don't know the game well enough, but can you explain why you check folded here?
Sure. So, well, how do I start? My decision to check is pretty. That's pretty. I would say standard, or
Right.
just not. It's the only way you can bet a 10. So when you value bet, right? Let's go real basic. When you value bet, you got to get called by worse, right? So
Right.
like, there's no hand that like people are gonna call thinking I'm value betting worse, most likely. So the only way to get called is if they put me on bluffs. knows, which I will have some, but we aren't going to be wanting to value bet this week. I mean, it's not the bottom of our range because on the cutoff I'll open all my jacks. Some of them I'll break off. A lot of them I'll break off once get 2 callers, but the roughest ones I'll have some jacks, but this is still bottom 20% of my pat range. So, it just doesn't make sense to be value betting it.
Right.
So checking it is fine. I mean, is right. And
Yeah.
then now how often do you have to call? Well, if you talk from like a theory standpoint, you'd have to look at how much he bet compared to the pot and how much we have to call to, make his bluffs indifferent and all that. But when it comes down to it,
1,200 to 1,700.
yeah. Okay. So the thing is, it comes down to more so it comes down to people. You can make some player pool reads and player specific reads too. I mean, I play with Ellie decent amount, and he's gonna make bluffs that are believable in the sense like it's kind of like a leveling thing of when people are gonna bluff. You said, well, he drew 2 and you folded. Like,
Yeah.
well, that's almost exactly why I bluffed. I mean, why I folded, because I
To be believable.
on the level he's on, I just don't think he's gonna try to win check 2 and like he's gonna go ahead and fire drawing 2 against a pat hand.
So if he drew 1, you would be more likely to
1, I think
call.
I would be closer to calling in
Right.
in that particular spot. Now, obviously, if you go ahead and start applying that all the time, then it's just completely nonsensical.
Sure.
But you have to, you can make you definitely can find spots like that.
And he actually just notched you, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
10-8-6 versus 10-8-7. And I remember talking to Dan Zach after, and again, I'm not that familiar with these games, and he said he was surprised that you folded. But, now we get an explanation, and it seems totally reasonable. And now I learned something new. Like, if it was one draw, it's more likely that you're bluff catching.
Yeah,
Or
against
just-
that in that specific spot, against that specific player, all that, yeah.
All right, and we're going to wrap this up, and this is going to be pre-recorded, and you're going to head in for the February 5th 200-400 mixed game right about now. And Elon Musk, if you're listening, this is a pretty bright guy. You should interview this guy for SpaceX or anything.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Good
Thank
luck
you.
today.